Welcome back to the Quantum Guide Show. Today, in episode 170, I'm very happy to introduce you to my special guest, Philip Kinsella. Philip Kinsella is the author of numerous books and articles on UFOs and consciousness. He was credited with a revolutionary speculation surrounding the Greys and abductions back in 1996, and has since gone on to explore within his theoretical work the truth as to what we may be dealing with on an empirical level of conscious awareness. He was awarded for his dedication to the truth with his UFO research in 2022. Philip also won Mediumship of the Year in 2008 among a panel of well-known mediums and media representatives, and has since gone on to explore these fascinating areas of controversy. Although controversial, he embraces all areas of investigations, but is known for his no-nonsense approach and dedication within these fields of study. He also researched the famous Rendlesham UFO hotspot in England and co-authored a book with one of the first authors, Brenda Butler. He is currently working on more projects. Today we will talk about Philip's latest book called TERRESTRAIL, Trespassers. Have you ever wondered, what are the Greys? Why are they here? What are their intentions? Why is it that after decades of alien abduction and UFO research, we are no nearer in truly establishing what we may be up against regarding this omnipresent force which seemingly operates beyond our level of reality and hides within the shadows like phantoms in the night? Along with Philip Kinsella, we will take a candid look at the phenomenon, along with other areas of high strangeness, in search for the clues which may answer some truly extraordinary claims. Since Philip's own alien abduction back in the winter of 1989, along with the appearance of UFOs at close range, he has been driven to find the truth of what may be behind these alien intrusions, and has highlighted several theories surrounding the big question of the Greys themselves. His speculation emphasizes a better understanding of multidimensional levels of consciousness and our need to look outside of the box of rational thinking, which science continually denies within the advent of such strange singularities. New theoretical models need to come into the equation if we are to make any progress in our search of not only UFOs and aliens, but what we as the human species ultimately represents. To find out more about my guest, all of the links are featured below in the description. Do check out the Amazon links to find out more about Philip's books. Be sure to share this fascinating episode with your friends. Welcome, Philip. How are you doing today?
Well, Karen, I'm very honored to be on your show, and I'm fine. Thank you very much. Still as puzzled as everyone else with regards to those areas that, pique our interest, so to speak. But it's good to have an open mind, and an open mind is better than a closed one. That's what they say. But thank you very much for having me on board your wonderful show, your program.
Thank you so much for coming. It's just a thrill to have you on the show, and I'm sure the viewers and the listeners are going to be really excited to hear this episode. So I thought maybe, Philip, we could go into a little bit about how you got started in all of this.
Yes, well, we all have a beginning, and mine hasn't come to an end yet. But I didn't want any part of the investigations of ufology, indeed, even in the psychic department. But when we were younger, when I say we, I talk of my identical twin brother Ronald and myself were younger, we had a number of very unusual occurrences happen to us. And one of those was when we were young lads and we were staying with our grandparents in their place in Felton, Middlesex. They lived in a 3-story big house. And one summer's afternoon, it was in the summer period because we were on holiday, We always spent all of our vacations there with our grandparents, whether it be summer holidays, Christmas, Easter. And on this particular summer's day, we were met, me, my brother, and our grandmother, by a silver orb that came towards us in broad daylight. And it was very strange, unusual in terms of its, what it was. We didn't know what we were looking at. But my grandmother, when it came at close range, it hovered over her head, probably in line with the second floor to the house where the windows were. And we asked her what it was, and she said, "Oh, look, the fairies have come to take a closer look at us." And we knew that there were no such thing as fairies. But that was the start of it, because that whole experience was very strange. And looking back now, we kind of like consider that, is it possible that this was some kind of probe, what was known then back in the day as the Foo Fighters, back in World War II, that was seen, accompanying Allied aircrafts? We can't prove that, but that was the start of the really deepening of this mystery. And this then led on to an interest in UFOs. I used to go to the library every Saturday and do a little project on UFOs. At that point, within that time, there wasn't many books available. There was one on Roswell. I devoured the entire book. And then, of course, going forward, when I was 20, we moved to a small village in the village of Master Mortain, just outside of Bedfordshire. And I had what is described as an alien abduction, if I use that word lightly. And it was a raw, savage experience, and too long-winded to go into here. I have analysed it with still no nearer understanding, but another researcher has put some connection links together with regards to the high levels of high strangeness regarding that. But that event clearly demonstrated two parts to the phenomena, one that operates on a physical level and one that operates on a non-physical level of reality. And this then, I'm sure that you're aware, Karen, with your research and your investigations, as well as your knowledge, that when you start looking into this area within ufology, it then opens up other corridors of speculation. The next part that opened up for me was the psychic realm, consciousness, and the question of life after death, the question of purpose, the question of Genesis. So that is primarily how I got involved in it. And at that point, when I had the abduction back in 1989, I was left with physical marks on me with regards to that, and a possible implant in the right ear. But this then led me to reaching out. And of course, my brother and I then belonged to Whitley Strieber's communion network. It was a UFO network through letters, because of course we didn't really have internet then, not like we have now, or communication as we have now. We belonged to that network of other abductees or experiences, as it were. So we were conversing through letter with those people from the United States of America. And then, of course, this led me then to connecting with the UFO group and meeting certain people. And from then onwards, it just spiraled out of control, in the sense that I wanted to go within my own direction, within my own research, and try and find out, like all of us, the reality of what's going on, and trying to pinpoint certain areas with regards to what we may be dealing with. Certainly, I think that our attitudes within the subject matter of ufology has morphed and changed since the 50s, 60s. I'm not that old, by the way, 70s and 80s. There's been a radical shift in not only the phenomena's appearance and the way it brings itself forward within our realm, but also within the attitudes and the public that's now beginning to realize that the phenomena may be very different to the way that we've been led to believe via the media cartel, if I can. So that basically, in a nutshell, is how I got involved with the experience of UFO research and consciousness.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, it's nice to speak to people who are researchers and have experience with the phenomena. It really adds so much more to your knowledge base, because you're not just basing it on what other people have experienced and said. You actually have your own to reflect on as well. And I myself also have the same. I'm not going to get into it too much because this show's all about you, but I have also had extraterrestrial contact, although mine's been, I would consider it transdimensional rather
Yes.
than the usual way of contact. And the beings that I have associated with are very much like us, but they're definitely interdimensional, and they hang out in interdimensional space. But anyway, I don't want to get too much into that. I was wondering if you want to tell us a little bit about your research and the books that you have published so far before we get into your current book, Terrestrial Trespassers.
Yes, it's interesting, Karen, when you mention interdimensional, ultra-dimensional, whichever higher spatial reality that these beings come in. It's fascinating because we are now exploring these territories of other areas, other planes of reality. And that fascinates me incredibly. With regards to the research or the material, with regards to the UFO phenomena at hand, you'll find that there's a lot of divide within certain sections surrounding ufology. Not so much in a psychic realm, because that kind of like runs parallel to an area where patterns can be defined, i.e. in terms of near-death studies and so on and so forth. But because the UFO subject comes in a variety of forms and integrates itself personally within the psyche of the individual that's going through it, the experiences are very different and multifaceted. But this is interesting because I've always stated, well, you know, where are they all? Where are they all hanging out? And that's interesting because we're all trying to fit it into the same box. We're all trying to squeeze it into one little box and it won't fit. Because I believe that we're dealing with something that operates on a very personal and unique level of integration. And we have to understand also that we, as human beings, and let's just also not forget that the real creation, the real genesis of what we are, what we represent, has never really been truly established other than by the cold rational concept of chaos, or the evolutionary pattern, which I'm not disputing, but it looks to me like we may have had some help along the way by other intelligences. So, you know, we live by a system which is continually telling us that these things don't exist. And it's all wishy-washy within the media cartel. The trouble is that, you know, there are good folks like ourselves, many of us out there, researchers, experiencers, and I like the way you stated that you yourself are not just an experiencer, but also a researcher. I think when you've been in the nest of that activity, it gives you more in the way of understanding. You're not so cold or rational within your viewpoint, although that is important in some cases, especially within criminology. But we are not criminals. We are here that have to, you know, bring our experiences forward. And it really annoys me when people say, I want proof, I want proof. Well, unfortunately, you're not going to get any proof. And let's just rewind a little bit here. If I had a piece, and not that I do have it, so I don't want people rummaging around in my loft or anything like that. If I had a piece of the Roswell wreckage, as it were, and I showed people and I said, here is my proof, this is what I've got, they still wouldn't believe you. It wouldn't be enough. So I've had that before by individuals that's come forward and say, I want dates, I want times, I want this, but whatever you bring to them, it still will not be enough. And this is linked with conscious dissidence, unfortunately. There are some people who will not sway or grow or develop on a multi-level of consciousness, conscious awareness. And I find this continuously. There was one radio show that wanted me to go on, and they had a team of skeptics there. I just literally pressed the delete button. I can't be bothered with it because whatever you do will never be enough to, and we're not convincing anyone, but they want convincing. And of course, trying to sway another person's mind into your way of thinking is a very dangerous thing to do. It is a natural progression, a natural development in terms of our conscious and spiritual growth. So I believe, you know, that when we are dealing with the UFO subject and it within its multifaceted forms, this certainly does open up other dimensions of thought, which is fascinating. But we must tread very carefully when we're dealing with those areas of research and sifting out the fact from fiction. And people will say, well, how will you know if someone's not telling the truth? Well, normally you go by that individual's personality, by the way they come across. And, you know, sticking with what they believe or know to have happened to them. And I say believe lightly because sometimes for some experiences, some abductees, they still can't get their head around the fact that it's actually occurred to them. And there has to be some kind of understanding on a mental level that this is what's occurred. So it's very interesting with regards to that. But, you know, we are all primarily after the truth. That's what we're after. We're looking for the holy grail of not just the UFO subject, but what it means to be human and our purpose here. You know, the deeper question of you know, this system, you know, lying to us. And we are discovering that those lies are apparent because of the continual research that not just myself, but many other explorers are doing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The other thing too is we're filtering our experiences through our own stream of consciousness. So like for me, when I had my experience, at first I thought I was dreaming. Then I realized it couldn't be dreams. It was so different. And then I thought I was crazy, you know, and I had to go through my own process. And it's taken me years to filter it and come up with what makes sense to me. But you're right, there's not a lot of proof. And it seems the phenomena is very much interdimensional. And I'm sure you're going to speak a little bit more to that. And people kind of have to experience it before they can realize how real it is. And I also just want to add, Philip, that I think that our understanding of what it means to be human has been extremely altered by our programming. And I believe that that is what I call the construct, where it's all programmed. And yet my reality mostly lies outside of the construct and is based on trusting my own experiences. But it just seems that we have been shut down to not come into our power, and that is as big an issue, I think, as the whole ET issue. And I think they're somehow interrelated. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, absolutely, Karen. First of all, we have to understand that if we go back into antiquity, and certainly within the ancient codices, not the ones that have been altered or manipulated to control. And I love the way that you use the terminology programmed, because I have used that quite a lot as well. The public have been programmed. And I believe this has been going on for, you know, not just 2,000 years, perhaps even longer. And when we look at the conscious subjugation of our species, it is quite apparent. If you go back into the past, the churches, well, I'm not saying they were all bad, but they were designed to create this limited view of life, and the versions of creation, the Sunday school version, I call them, wishy-washy, was quite apparent for the system to promote as a narrative. And people were made to live in fear, and also to be subservient to the churches. Don't use your mind outside the box, because if you do, you're considered a witch and you'll be burnt or drowned. And used as an example to the other populace that if you step out of line in terms of using your mind, then this is what will happen to you. And then creating all of this subjugation and division between individuals. So that control mechanism has never gone away. It's been upgraded now, far from the days of old when they burnt witches or, you know, drowned them. And even if a lady brought a child through from the womb in a different way, they were considered a heretic, and then they, of course, they were burnt or drowned. Even males as well too. It wasn't just females that were burnt; it was males as well too, because you had what were considered sorcerers or male witches. So this whole structuring of our Genesis has been narrowed within its field of understanding. The real truth, which is now starting to come up, and something that I've always known as a child, I think will have a lot of people's jaws on the floor, literally on the floor, because they will discover that we are much more than just mere flesh and blood creatures with a sell-by date, that we have purpose. We're not just a machine that obeys and, you know, not allowed to ask questions, pay your taxes, believe what we tell you, toil the soil and then die. No, no, no. No, we are fighters, you, me, and many others, with regards to the way that this system has disgustingly operated, and all about money and control. And the other area that really annoys me more than anything is that the potentiality of each single individual and what they could, in terms of their brilliance, be, crafted to bring towards this planet, what they may know, what they could give, what they could contribute. I know there's many that wouldn't want to do anything, but think about those minds that have walked this planet and are walking them at this moment in time that's being pushed into a box. There's no opportunity for you. You can do this job. And I don't care if you're a cleaner, I admire them, or someone that works as a CEO for a company. It doesn't bother me. We're all the same. So this is where the problem is. There has been a programming, and it's, as you know, and as everyone is aware, I don't need to, go into this, but the media cartel are the ones who promote all of this disruptive narrative. And you'll see it evidently within the news media. I'll give an example here just briefly. Whenever there's a spate of UFOs, it's yes or no, yes or no. Nothing is ever defined within that category in terms of the media's interpretation of what they want the public to feel this is. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because just recently, was it a year ago or a couple of years ago, time flies so quickly, they were putting here on national news about those objects that crashed. They were calling them UFOs on primetime news channels. For the first time ever, they had mentioned the word UFOs. And we're like, and a lot of other researchers were like, what are you talking about? What do you mean UFOs? So you can see that they're messing around with the human psyche, almost like playing us at our own game. Yes, it's there, then we'll take it away from you. But I believe that when we look into the areas of not only conscious subjugation, but now more and more people than ever before are tearing away from the systematic control that they've been subjected to, not just within the religious ideologies. And I'm not saying that they're all bad. I'm sure that most of them are good people and just doing what they believe, programmed to do what is good for them. No problem. But the reality tells us a completely different story. More people now are waking up and beginning to realize that this in here, this beautiful brain, which is the gateway to consciousness, is more than what we've been told, that there's a gateway to other realities, to other existences. Unfortunately, we are physically tied, temporarily that is, to this world through a process of incarnation. So we have to go through this process. But I'm sure, like you, I never felt like I belonged here. Not one bit. I'm like, get me out of here.
Yeah, we're like strangers in a strange land, And
Yeah.
I agree. And I also think, because I know my own experiences, and I know that I'm not anything special. I'm not gifted. I'm not been graced with God's approval. I've not been had anything amazing about me. I am so ordinary and flawed. And yet, if I can consciously go into other realms and other places and have other experiences, then I'm quite sure that everybody else can too. In my case, I guess one thing is I'm a fairly defiant human being, but I'm also not dependent on what other people think of me. And so that gives me tremendous freedom to chart my own course and have my own experiences. So, but I agree with you 100%. Like, I think if any of the listeners and viewers have a religion and it's working well for you, awesome. That's fantastic. But I myself couldn't fit. I tried quite a few different religions. I couldn't make myself fit into the box that I would have to conform to. I couldn't do it. And so eventually I gave it up. And that's when I really started to have amazing personal experiences. But enough about me. I'm wondering, let's talk a bit about your current book. And can you tell us or the audience what exactly are the grays? Because there's so much misinformation and there is probably some good information, but it's hard to tell what is real, what's not. Do you want to give us your take on what the grays actually are?
Well, we have to be very careful because there are many people in the world who have that all worked out. I, however, do not. What I do have is a theoretical model, and that was brought to me in the year 1996. And of course, I remembered the first time ever in my life where I had some kind of download. People call it download. The only way to describe it is like an opening within the consciousness, and you have this answer that's all there. Everything seems to make sense. There is no words. There are no, it's more to do with feelings and impressions that create the language. Well, I remembered when I got this through, and I'll describe this in a moment about the greys, but I went home and I remembered at work, I made notes of it very quickly because it was like, oh my God, I had a moment like, good Lord, what's happened there? And I wrote the whole thing out and sent it to Alien Encounters, and they accepted it. They considered it revolutionary within its speculation, but speculative indeed, because people will tell you, no, you're wrong. The greys are AI constructs. That is possible. They are us from the future. That is possible. They're coming from another planet. That is possible. They are demons. That is possible. We have to be open to all forms and concepts, to whatever's brought forward to the table, because we don't know. But I wondered about the greys, and although through my abduction I didn't see any hybridization program, and I did meet Dr. David Jacobs in Phoenix, and we had a little bit of a chat around the table about this, and I respect his ideas. But I was wondering how it was, since I had the abduction in 1989, and all through those years, I kept thinking, how was I able to pass through solid matter? One part of it was physical, and the other part late at night or in the early hours of the morning, as we would say, I was taken through the glass to our house, and it was all to do with the glass, and then taking on board this craft, and then they did what they were doing, and then ejected me after seeing another grey. And that's the shortened version. I can tell you, Karen, I can smile about it now, but it was a very different experience at the time. When you go back, people will criticize you for this and this, but no, I do have a sense of humor now. I can deal with it. But the greys are interesting, because I kept wondering, why would they be interested in the process of reproduction for a species that themselves cannot reproduce? Certainly they came across as a blank canvas, as though they had no personality. They didn't understand about aging, about taste, of smell, of love, all these things that make us what we are. So they seem to be a composite of something that we are not. And why they were interested in the process of human reproduction with regards to their hybridization program. And I wondered, whether or not, through the act of cloning, if they had engineered themselves or self-replicated themselves and the process of reproduction was no longer viable, that would create problems, because as humans, we create, reproductive system that we are. We come in through the womb and we develop, and of course then we grow and then we pass over. And my understanding is that before we come into the womb, it's got something to do with the soul, what that initial spark that makes us what we are, spirit, soul. And I believe that is carried from the other side through to this side as we incarnate. Because I kept thinking, well, there doesn't seem to be any point in us just existing and then dying. And if there is some form of continuation, what would the point in one journey be? And I kept thinking, well, if we're coming from one side to another, from spirit, which would be real to us when we are matched by that density, and then coming into this system, and this process of going backwards and forwards. And I kept thinking, well, is it possible that all of us as humans, temporary humans, as it were, because we are spirit, are we creating memories, experiences that we are sending back to the other side to expand upon the process of creation, the process of understanding from the one of whatever we're all connected to, I believe. And if we were or did go through a process of replication where there was no pregnancies, where there's no incubation within the fetus within the womb, and it was just all self-replication, well, then that would mean that being would be outside the field of creation itself, far removed. It wouldn't be coming in and incarnating and going back again. It would have severed that link on some level. So I wondered whether or not the greys are from another system. And this is interesting because there's a lot more involved in this. It's not just what I'm saying here, that they have found a system where we reproduce, and they're interested in this level of reproduction. They're interested in what makes us what we are. They seem to be denied that, or they don't seem to have what we have. And they seem to be at pains in modifying some kind of container or new hybrid, perhaps able to carry a piece of the spark of what they are, in the hope that they will retain that connection back to the creator. Mm-hmm. Now, if we go from antiquity into the past, through the Akkadian Sumerian codices, not just with Gnosticism and that type of thing, but I always believed that we were engineered by some form of extraterrestrial species. I always knew that as a kid. I didn't need to be convinced by anyone. And I went through the wars like you did, of people battling, especially Christians, telling me how it is, and I'm dealing with the devil. And they were lovely people, but unfortunately, I had to separate from them because I embraced what they believed in, or tried to embrace it, but it just wasn't for me. But I always believed that we were created by some kind of extraterrestrial that we would term intelligence. But interesting, if you go back in the creation of man and woman, because the female Sophia, of course, the system tried to take away any emphasis of the female energy, and the Christos energy they kept, but not the female one, Sophia. But after that, the engineers didn't want their creation, i.e., us as a workforce, to reproduce, and they allowed that to happen. We flourished, and of course, that system back in the day, the gods did not want their creation to take over. There was a rebellion, and of course, they had to wipe us out. And of course, that's linked with the flood theory, the Great Flood theory. So I believe parts of that are correct, but a lot of the facts have been twisted, distorted as to who and what. Now, these gods, whatever they were, Anunnaki, people have, different names for them. They obviously may have come from another system. So if they were able to bioengineer humans through part of the mammal, the hominid, and an infusion of them with that to create us bipedal, if they had come from another system, could they have created a workforce there? And that workforce has now found us. And wondering, well, hang on a minute, we were created, but we weren't able to be reproduce. And yet this species is afforded this right. And remember also that through our gods, as we call them, scientists or, visitors, they were and are different from us. So we are containers of something very different from them. So, I'm not going to go into too much detail because that's like opening a can of worms. And people say, well, hang on a minute, I've lost the plot. And yes, you would lose it a little bit when you start looking into this. But it certainly tells us that extraterrestrials appear to have been involved through our engineering, as it were. And like humans and gods, there were wars that were waged. And let's just put it this way, these extraterrestrials weren't all good and weren't all nice. So this is interesting. So I think and feel that it's possible that the Greys could be an offshot of something that was primarily created by another force that was not allowed the right or afforded the right to reproduce. Or it's possible that they have counseled themselves out of that process of reproduction, and through, sadly, replication on a purely biotechnical level, and have found us. And the question is, if they were here to help us, none's really been given, not from a certain faction from them anyway, that I'm aware of. And they are able to bend time and space. They appear like spectres in the night. And this is what draws into the connection of the abduction phenomenon, how it's possible that they're able to extract the real essence of what we represent and bring us into their frequency of awareness of reality, matched. Rather like us dying and passing over in a near-death state, and then we are physically in that realm. We can integrate with it, but no longer with this physical realm that we've departed from. So this opened up a whole new area of understanding of not just what the Greys may represent, but primarily the reasons behind their reproductive program, why they are so different from us, why they hide, why they are keeping everything secret, and how they're able to come through walls and doors and, alter time, as it were, literally alter time. So this is the theory that I had at that point in 1996, was a download to suggest to me that the Greys are not what we see them as, that they are working towards their own agenda. And we seem to be primarily of great interest, invested interest, with regards to their base of operations. But, we have to tread very carefully because there will be people out there who will tell you what they are and where they come from and why they're here. They've got it all worked out. I've been down that road before, and I will not dispute that. I must make that perfectly clear on your program, Karen. I have never disputed anyone's ideas. We don't know, but it's interesting, and we need to look outside the box. And another thing is that the phenomena has morphed, it's changed. Now, that's interesting. It has changed. Since days of old, it's gone through a form of process of change, which is interesting.
Wow. Hi, guys. Break time for a short message. YouTube will not monetize me, so if you enjoy my content and want to support my efforts, help me to cover my expenses by visiting my shop to buy yourself a beautiful orgone generator. Zendome's Orgonite are my unique brand, and they are ethically sourced, handmade, and double charged for maximum effect. They are only available through my website, www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com. Many people are finding comfort with Zendome's orgone generators, commonly called Orgonite. They are a simple compound which balance ambient energy by converting negative energy and EMF into positive healing energy with many easily confirmed health benefits. They are a simple compound with alchemic and energetic properties. These devices function as self-driven, continuously operating, highly efficient, negative to positive energy transmutation factories. They help diminish the harmful effects of electromagnetic frequency radiation by attracting and converting negative energies, retuning them into new and more healthful sound and light wave patterns. And they help to purify the atmosphere and accelerate plant growth. They also help stimulate positive mood and are a natural remedy for poor sleep patterns. When Orgonite is within range of any corded or wireless electronic device, it will efficiently and continuously transform that energy into orgone as it is being transmitted. This essentially creates orgone energy transmitters out of any and all emitters of harmful negative energy. You can use these devices for focusing the mind, healing, meditation, and for spiritual growth. Zendome's Orgonite are my unique brand of orgone generators, and they are only available through my website. Don't be fooled by imitations. Check out my website to see my latest selection at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com. That's KarenHolton healthcoach.com. Check them out today. Now, let's get back to the show. Wow, that's so much to think about in everything you just said. I want to I know. I want to just touch on the interdimensional aspect. This is what I believe. It's based on not just my research, but also my intuition and my own experiences, is that there are many different realms of reality that all coexist, possibly in the same time and space, but we are programmed, I guess, maybe on a quantum level or on some level to basically be stewards of the earth, to have our basic senses. And up until recently, that was enough, unless you were a shaman or something like that. But we're evolving and we're changing and we're becoming more interdimensional. And so we're able to also cross over, even though we're told that's poppycock and no, that's not true. And the religions would say, oh, you better stay away from all that kind of thinking. You're leading you to Satan's path and all that other jazz. Well, it seems to me that we can alter our receiver wavelength somehow within our physiology to pick up on other dimensional realities. So, and this is not new. You know this, Philip, for thousands and thousands of years amongst the indigenous people, this was well known. But what has, I'm going to say, Western humanity, for lack of a better term, the colonizer done? Try to destroy all of those beliefs and those cultures with great impunity. Like, it doesn't even make sense that how, and the church, main churches wanted to just stamp this out, like because I think it's our gift and our natural way of being. And now we're returning to that. And so we're experiencing, more of these other dimensional realities. I also wanted to add that I also believe, and I've been told by my extraterrestrial friends, that our genetics have been altered, and we are something different. And I just want to throw one more thing into the mix here, not to overcomplicate it, but just these are thoughts that came up for me while you were speaking. And that is, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I went through brain overload, too many thoughts. Anyway, I'll just give it back to you, Philip, and if it comes
Yeah,
back to me, I'll bring it in later.
no worries. And that's why I say when you get involved with this subject matter, it does and will become a brain overload. Because when I first got involved in that, before I get to the next part that we're going to talk about, is that I had to almost come away from it because it was too much for me because of that programming. And of course, my one part of the brain, the carnal side, the left side, is like, oh, I can't deal with this. You need to move away from this. It makes sense. And the right side's fighting. And so after several years of trying to balance this out, harmonize the energies, we're like, right, we're in there now. Now, interdimensional, yes, we operate as spiritual entities, as in a biological suit, and we are the brain is the gateway. It is literally the gateway for consciousness. So, like your mobile phones, we all have signals. It makes me laugh when people say, "Oh, I don't like the look of you," and "I don't like the look of you." Well, all the mobile phones, most of the makes are all different. They look different, but the signal is the same. But the signal is impressed with unique individual information. Now, with regards to human consciousness, our individuality, depends on how we think and how we feel. And a lot of individuals are getting in tune, knowing about the brain being the gateway to alternative dimensions of reality, and that your frequency will draw to you what you are needing. And those entities, those extraterrestrials, even those on the other side. I mean, for goodness sake, at the end of the day, I mean, I knew that I was a freak when I was a kid, but after the advent of the UFO abduction, it seemed to fire something in me about life after death and then being a medium. And I'm not one of these mediums saying, I've got your grandmother here that liked cooking and wore an apron and liked her gardening. No, I'm an evidential medium. I go in for the facts. But not just dealing with the mediumship, but examining and exploring that dimension of reality and where it's coming from. So my mind chooses, believes, and opens up that dimension with them. And, and this is where a lot of people are like, well, I'm dealing with this lot and I'm dealing with that lot. Well, yeah, sure, because your energy signature is being sent out to them. You're connected with them on that level. If you wish to close it, that's up to you. I'm not saying that it will close. So this is why I said that everyone's trying to squeeze the whole thing into the same box, because there are, it could be millions of alternative realities that's operating within, and above or below one another, and integrating, like the signals to our mobile phone are swamping all of us and we can't see them. And all that information is swaying through the ether. And if we were in tune like a mobile phone to see what it was, we would be in a nightmare of information, literally billions and billions of pieces of information to be able to see it. But because we're not programmed here to connect with that frequency, we're linked on the material level, or a very tiny part of the ultraviolet spectrum. Now, the brain is interesting, and you're right. More and more people now, good folk now, are beginning to realize that they've been had to a degree, and that they're exploring their own consciousness. They're exploring these areas which are unique to them. So, I had one couple tell me that the only reason you had a negative experience, that is the abduction, is because you're a negative person. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not a negative person, but I do understand that there are good extraterrestrials out there. There are those on the other side, which are our loved ones. There are even higher forms of energies, even to the point where it will come through as literally thought and have no form, because it's so far removed from our current base of mental processing. So yeah, sure, Karen, I understand that, multiple levels of reality coexisting within our timeline, absolutely. And it only takes a moment for them to trigger into the individual. And that's also what's interesting with a lot of researchers that I know with these areas of high strangeness, and why it is, for instance, Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, Paul Sinclair, a brilliant researcher here in England, who's dealt with a lot of UFO and cryptid investigations here in England. And Rendlesham, which I researched for about 10, 11 years, had a lot of very strange experiences. One amazing CE5 initiative that occurred before it was even created on the 8th of June, 1998, that happened there with me and my brother and Susan, a friend of mine. So this is what led me into, how does this phenomena come through, and, how is this possible? So yes, and that is another area that Terrestrial Trespassers looks into, not just about the creation, and I won't use the word mythos because I really hate that, the creation of man, and also looking into the greys, but also a large portion of the cryptids as well too. And people say, well, hang on a minute, how can the cryptids be connected with the greys, and how can the Sasquatch be connected with the greys? Well, I'm not saying that they're connected with the greys, but they are all operating more or less on a same frequency of communication. Dogmen have communicated mentally with some people. Even Paul Sinclair told me there was one case in England where a couple saw one wearing an earring in its ear, the Sasquatch, and also the ufology side of that reality. So as the human, we appear to be the only intelligent, and I'm sorry, I believe and love all nature. I'm not denouncing nature or animals or creatures of our world, no. But the intelligent species, we as the human are so far removed from all of these other areas which are surrounding us. Now, isn't that interesting?
Yep, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the programming. The
Yes.
programming so that we think our reality is the constructed reality. That's why I call it the construct. But we have, I believe, a God-given, and I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. I do
Oh, yeah.
believe in source,
Yeah.
but at the same time, we've been fooled and tricked into thinking we're living in this material world. I mean, yes, it's physical, but the material world, for instance, money, the whole money system, the whole
Oh,
economic system, the whole political system. And right now, you could just go crazy watching mainstream or alternative news shows on all the stuff that's being presented as real. It's kind of funny. I limit how much of that stuff I'm going to expose myself to. And in my world, Philip, it's beautiful. I have the most amazing experiences. I have peace. I have love. I have everything I ever wanted, as long as I stay out of the construct. And if
yeah.
that makes me an oddball, fine. I'm happy to be an oddball. If that makes me insane, I'm signing up. I love it. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. So one of the things I hope to do on this show is to inspire other people to lose. Basically, it takes courage, especially in the beginning, to step out and for people to experience this stuff on their own. Now, I'm not saying everybody wants to be abducted by grace, of course not, but I am saying that there are so many spiritual things, and I also believe it's all connected. I think the cryptids, the extraterrestrials, and even the angelic realms, and so much more, that it's all part of the same phenomenon. And it's
Yeah.
probably not even difficult to wrap our head around if only we started to drink that beautiful, refreshing water of truth.
Yes.
And that's what you're here for. That's what I'm here for. And I'm just really pleased with the way this conversation is going. Now we still have some time left, Philip. I'm wondering if you want to explore or share with us, I should say, any other aspects of terrestrial trespassers.
Yes, well, it's interesting because it is a composite of many varied subject matters that we try to draw together. I totally agree with you. I am not a religious person, but I have a belief in an afterlife. I have a belief in a divine source of energy that we're all connected to. And remember also that as humans in this state, within this time, as we are represented momentarily, we do go through processes of divinity, of being connected with a source and inspiration that fires deep within the heart and the soul. And when this occurs, there are deeper connections to those realities. It's almost like when you are truthful, when you are honest, when it comes from when the deep seatedness of the soul, when you are reaching out for that truth, trust me, in some way or form, it will come through on that level, because I know that I have always been guided by higher beings, by good beings, by those on what we call the other side. Heck, it could even be extraterrestrial for all I know, but I identify them in terms of how I translate that reality to me. And I believe that you're right. It's how we translate that experience and how the phenomena comes into you and morphs itself within that reality. We understand, for instance, that when we pass over to the other side, energy is transmutable. It can change, it can morph, it can manifest into anything. And this is interesting because this goes into the concept of quantum mechanics, and within the quantum realm, which is fascinating through vibration and how vibration creates matter and how that matter is then shaped within whatever environment it is connected with. So I think it's great to be inspired also, although we have to look at the negative aspects of this as well. Trust me, we look at the good, bad, and the ugly. Because if you are just staying on one level, then it's good to be armed with the information of the others as well too, because that's what I've been doing, looking at both aspects, because I believe that the key components to the answers we're looking for could be found there. I think and feel that you're absolutely right. It's really exciting that more people now are breaking away from the constraints of this evil control and mental subjugation. I mean, for goodness sake, in our technological age, there are more people suffering, God love them, from mental problems, emotional problems, spiritual problems. And this system that we serve is absolutely evil. And the puppets that serve their masters, whoever they are at the top of the chain, they're rewarded with riches, with gongs, and all this type of thing, when it should be the good people down here that should be looked after. And I agree with you. Get rid of money. That needs to go. Like Star Trek, do some work and get some credits or whatever, and you get, whatever. And they won't be that cruel anyway. And this is why I've said to you before, Karen, about not just about the phenomena at hand or the UFO field of investigations or the cryptozoological or the supernatural or life after death or consciousness. It is about looking after the folk here, because there are millions and billions of wonderful minds on this planet. And as I said before, there are many who wouldn't want to do anything, but there are a lot of people that if I was in charge, and not that I ever would, because they'd never allow it, or you or me, because we're on the right page, and they don't want that. They don't want people like us there. But I would say to them, right, what can you bring to the table? What would make your life happy for you? But at the same token, can you help towards, life, developing life, progression, working together, no demands, no forcing, working together as a united front, bringing people from different countries, from different worlds together, because most of us want that peace. We just want to love one another. But this system is creating that divide. You can see what they're doing them, and be very wary, because like the Greys, who appear to be operating on a singular level of conscious awareness, perhaps and maybe, and I will say here, through some kind of AI construct, and I'm not talking about the microchips we have, perhaps on very different levels, maybe spiritual or biological. We have yet to look into that area. But look what's happening, transhumanism. They don't want us to be individual. It's the individuality that they can't control. They don't like it. They want to know what we're thinking, what we're feeling. And this is why I think they're pushing us towards this agenda. And it's possible also that there could be a faction of these beings, not all of them. I'm not tainting all the greys with the same brush like humans. We're all the same, but we have different categories of them. There could be a force in operation that is moving towards this process of transhumanism. And can I just put here, interestingly, another area very quickly that your listeners and your viewers might find interesting, looking into crash retrieval operations with regards to down UFOs. Oh, yes. People say, well, how can that happen when they're on a different level? Well, look at the signal to your mobile phone operating through this mechanism here. It's possible that this force builds itself up as it enters into our realm, because in a lot of cases, and that I've heard from researchers, when this apparent wreckage, very strangely in distant locations or remote locations by military bases, this type of thing, never in hugely overpopulated areas, when these greys or whatever come down, when they've analyzed the material, there's a lot of normal material that's connected in there, but something a little bit different added in there. And I said it could be like the thing that builds itself up as it comes into our reality, because it needs to enter this reality on some level so it can integrate with us. But it's interesting how the wreckage was very simple to begin with, going back into the very early stages of these crashes. But then coming up to the Roswell period, they are a little bit more technical, you understand? And it's almost as if some force is somehow, giving us a little something that we can work towards to help push the evolutionary cycle along just a bit more into this technological age, and now coming into AI. So there is considerations to be made whether or not there is an overall plan, albeit a very patient one, a force that's very patient in wanting to get rid of our spirit, our individuality, what makes us what we are, and then go into that hell of a world where we end up becoming just like the Greys. Who knows, Karen? It's there. It's a possibility.
Oh, I think it's a really, really good way of looking at it. I've also um, been taught, when I say being taught, sometimes I've been taught aboard the big ship that I have been to. But besides that, I get spontaneous knowings, understandings,
Yes.
I get overlays, I get downloads. I have all kinds of freaky ways of getting my information. But
Uh-huh.
that's what I mean by being taught. But I've been taught that there are factions of beings who have somehow broken away from the system that is organized by source. And
Mm,
that is the system that works very delicately, but very in a balanced way together on many different dimensional realities are a part of that. And then there are beings who have chosen, and through technology, although I don't understand how it works, have been able to break themselves off from the way of from source and from the natural order of things. And they think that's for some reason serves them. And so they're going off and trying to, of course, spread that almost like a false religion, but it's more than that. It is an actual separation. And I'm just saying, perhaps, and based on what you've said here today, these beings are somehow jealous of those of us who have stayed connected and want what we have, but they can't have it because they screwed up big time. And maybe
right.
that's what they're trying to accomplish. And I think that has also bled through to I don't even know who really runs the construct here on Earth. When you look at the ones that have all the power and money, they fund both sides of the wars, they fund both sides of the political parties, they
Yeah.
fund the big churches, and we don't even know who they are. It's like David Icke talks about the spider at the center of the web. Are they ETs? I don't know. But I do know one thing is that if grays, and I'm sure there's more than one kind, so again, I'm
Oh,
not trying to paint them all with the same brush, but if they really did have the capacity to care, why not give us free energy? That would solve a whole lot of problems here on Earth. Why not somehow add something positive? And I've seen no positive
no.
contribution. And I don't know, you've already said that, but
They have. They've already given it to us. And that was through several inventors because they use us as their channels to bring through the information. Nikola Tesla and many
Yes.
other inventors. But when they try to bring this out, those evil, corrupt forces will destroy them. The big companies will make sure that their inventions, their ideas will never see the light of day. And, this is what makes me laugh about, the world's going through this and going through that. And we're beginning to find out that most of this is a load of old rubbish, that it's all been engineered and towards a plan. And then, of course, that program, centralized programming again. So I believe that certain individuals, we're all unique, we're all important, we're all special. I don't care if you're the man with the can or now the king with the crown, it doesn't matter. But they have utilized certain instruments, humans here, to bring that information through and advance us. But because all of our world is all about money and commercialism, and you need money in order to fund a project or an idea to get it out there. And if they see it, they'll crush it. It's the same within, and we're not going to get involved in this in the medical world as well too, with a lot of inventions that could help towards cures. It's strange how they want to just scrub it out. That if you were a doctor, a compassionate person, you'll say, okay, well, let's see if there is any benefits with this. Let's give it a go and see if this helps. But they don't. They will just literally crush it. And this is, I think, more people now are getting stronger because a lot of people that we're seeing within the political arena, a lot of people now are seeing the lies and deception. To me, I've always said, Karen, you'll laugh at this. There was an author called Enid Blyton. She was in her time, the J.K. Rowling of her time, back in the 50s. And the world at the moment is like a Noddy's Toyland. It literally is pathetic. And when you look around, and the sad thing is that the system at the top, who is bleeding the working class and, God love them, the poor people dry to feed themselves even more to become richer. They're just servants for the system. As we all know, there'll be others and mores after them. But be very careful what you send out. You may have your money and you may have your power and you may have your gongs, but be very careful what you send out, because eventually, and this happens to a lot of these folk out there who have been down that road, they want to give it all away. It's almost like they want to repent. They want to give everything up because they know the truth. They know what's going on. So I think, and Phil, yes, we are going through extraordinary times, and it is a war, not a physical war, although I'm sure that the system we serve wants to destroy nearly all of us, and they're pushing towards that agenda, I'm sure. But they know that they're losing control with us and the way that we operate, the way that we think, and they'll do everything to try and crush us down even more. But no, we will win. The light will eclipse the darkness.
Very, very encouraging. And thank you for pointing that out. That never occurred to me. Now, I've done research. There's been so many people who have come up with free energy and anti-gravity devices, vehicles that are powered by water, all kinds of things. And in every single case, they have died, and all their research has been taken away. Every single case. But it never occurred to me that maybe they were getting that information from what we would consider aliens or interdimensional beings. That I never looked at it that way. So thank you for that.
That's
And
okay.
and I agree with you about the state of the world. Absolutely agree with you on every level.
I mean, we are all instruments. We're all links. We're all, receivers to this information. And if you are vibrating or wanting that connection link, then I believe that information will be sent from the pool of all that is. And so we have had geniuses who have brought this to the table, but notice how nothing, absolutely nothing has changed, because we're still utilizing the same fossil fuels and the same crude methods of propulsion and so on and so forth. And, it makes me laugh. Can we believe in anti-gravity? Well, yes, it's been around for a long time. But you guys just won't release that information. So, there you have it.
Yep. Yep. It always amazes me. The more things change, the more they stay the same. So I look at the old feudal systems during, the Dark Ages, and where all the people were in absolute terror and fear all the time. They couldn't step out of line. Well, it's changed methods, but it's still happening today. So many people, like, again, I'm not against people. If you've got a religion, it's doing it for you, awesome. But from my perspective, I've seen it as been another control device. The whole economic system is a control device. The fact
mm,
that we are still going to war, it just
mm,
blows my mind, just blows. I can't even fathom it, how
mm.
people are not waking up to that, and hopefully one day they will. But yeah, there's a lot of shenanigans. I'll just say shenanigans going on this planet. But once our eyes are opened, I think we have a chance to
Yeah,
be true to ourselves and to be part of this amazing phenomena, which is what I call the awakening of
yes,
humanity. And all the terrible things that have happened, even especially in the last 10 years, wow, have they opened the minds and hearts of so many people that were clamped down tight
mm,
before? And so I can only hope that we as human beings unite and have a vision for the future. I always recommend people envision what they would like to see and not spend so much time envisioning what they don't want to see. And the one thing we can all agree on is paradise. It may look a little different for you, Philip, than for me, but paradise is something that we all could focus on. And I think that also raises our collective vibration and helps us get closer to that. The other thing that's interesting is those with the power, they only have that power as long as we give it to them. As soon as we see them as being the emperor who has no clothes or the magician behind the curtain, it's
yeah,
laughable. And that's what's happening too. So I'm hoping that the whole UFO, alien, ET phenomenon is actually helping us to move towards a better reality now and in the future. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
yes, I do. And it's the same with clairvoyance. It operates on varied levels of dimensional awareness. We understand that we are compasses of not just the biological form, but also the astral form. We go on, and that form, when it's matched by its original density, will integrate with it. And I believe this is what's going to happen. I believe that once we have grown, many wonderful people out there have grown, they've advanced. It's just a lot of the suppression of consciousness is holding everything down. And when you try and push out of that bubble, you'll find, like, giving an example, I'm going to have a wonderful day. I'm going to be lovely to everyone, and which I normally am. And then, of course, you find everyone seems to be against you. And I was like, is there a program for the system that it's like sending out warning, warning? This one here is getting up there. We need to get to them and bring them back down again. So I believe that once we escape this bubble, this trap, this conscious subjugation, this prison, once we all get stronger, and then we can burst it. And then I believe at that point, there'll be an understanding or awareness from those on the higher level to come in straight away. They will come in. There is a war that's going on. It's a silent war. And the system we serve knows all about the human psychology and the workings of the brain. They have been doing their damnedest to bring all of us, those of us who are aware and open, down. They have sent everything they can to try and destabilize us, to try and ridicule us. But we will fight forward, all of us. And it's so wonderful, because the sad thing is that, if you are a good person, we are, and you show that humility and that love, that kindness. And I want nothing less than paradise where people love, where there is creativity, where there is a never ending stream of all these ideas and art and music and literature. That is heaven. But from where we are at the moment, there is obviously a reason why we're going through what we're going through. And I say it's good that we fight, not physically, but in spirit, and also
Mhm.
within the spirit of what we represent. So, never ever, Karen, put yourself down when you say that you're not really anyone. You are. You are part of the divine. We are all part of that source, that networking. Something somewhere has gone wrong, terribly wrong. And that is quite evident, even perhaps through the incarnation process here on earth. There's something that I think's gone wrong, and that we're trying to put that right. So dark and light energy, rather like Star Wars, the dark side and the good side, it makes sense. But let this opera play out, because as we know, the truth always wins. You understand when you hold that sword of justice high and up for all to see. But some people, unfortunately, they look at you, even on our level, and they bring you down, and they take advantage of your humility and see that as a weakness and exploit it. But we are strong. So, well, I always say to anyone, when you get involved with ufology, it's not just that subject you're going to get involved in. There's a whole host of other things that you're going to go down that rabbit hole. And I don't like the word the rabbit hole because I think it's exciting when, you know, Alice in Wonderland, when she went down that rabbit hole, I was amazed, like, wow, that's incredible. And I'd rather be down there than up there.
So true, so true. So, Philip, we're quickly running out of time. I'm wondering if you want to spend a few minutes telling people where they can find you, where they can find your publications, what you're up to. Do you have any projects for the near future, and any, closing conclusions or comments you want to offer the listeners and the viewers today?
Yes, well, they can get hold of me. I have two websites. One is my working website, www.philipkinsella.com, and the other one, which is a shared one with my twin brother, www.thekinsellatwins.com. My books are available on Amazon. In fact, heck, everything's available on Amazon. It's the easiest place for people to get things. Most of my other books, a lot of those that were published by other publishers through contract, are out of print now. But I do have books on psychic phenomena out there, A Passage to Eternity, The Enigma of the Dead, UFOs and Aliens, Guardians of the Dead, You, the Public Deceived, Sky Crash Throughout Time, and Terrestrial Trespassers are available as Kindle, audio, most of them in audio, Kindle, paperback and hardback. I'm always working on some articles. I know I'm very honored with everything that I have, and very honored for those who have taken the time to, help me and push us forward, because we have our mentors as well in life. But I write for articles on UFOs and consciousness, and I've got some articles coming out again in next times in Italy. Lovely people there, and some in England here by the big magazines here in England. And I'm doing some filming later this year, some more filming. I completed some filming earlier this year, but I'm doing some more filming for a production company later this year, which is wonderful. And I am actually working on a new project, and it's one that deals with incarnation, reincarnation, the soul genesis, and also why we are here. What's the purpose? Is there meaning to our life? Well, we know there is, but we have to explain that to the good public who may not be so clued up at that particular moment within their time at the moment. But it's nice to be able to steer and guide people, and show them, look, this is what we think is going on, and this is what we think is happening, and you can take it or leave it, but certainly it's affected me, as it's affected you, Karen, and many other people. So, in an hour and 10 minutes, it's been wonderful. But I think it's also incredible that I am linked with like-minded souls, and no one is better than anyone else. My last message here is to anyone out there, if you have a dream, live it. It may be difficult upon your journey. You may be put down by other people. You may find yourself in difficult situations. But if you really believe in what you want to bring forward, whether it be a piece of art or literature or music or acting, or even singing in a choir, whatever you are, wherever you come from in life, it doesn't matter. If you have a belief, use it. If you have an ability, push forward. Just know that you are great and wonderful and connected to the source of all that is. Just remember that. There are people out there. They're not all bad. There's a lot of good people out there as well. You understand? God loved them for that.
Well, thank you, Philip. It's been a very inspirational hour. I've learned a lot, and I appreciate you so very much. And it's also an honor and a privilege to be connected with you, and to see there's another person who's basically, exposing the way things really are, and that we don't have to live within the construct. We can spread our wings and we can fly. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to thank the listeners and the viewers. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate each and every one of you. And thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next week on the Quantum Guide Show. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you for joining me for the Quantum Guide Show. Become the change that you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to my YouTube and other channels at Karen Holton TV. Click the like button, leave me a comment, and share this podcast with your friends. Check out my website at www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you will find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton and also the Aliens and Angels podcast on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.